Well, I think we can all agree we had such a great time here in Memphis. I bet you can't wait to sign up for the 2020 Biennial. I guess you know where we're going and how we're getting there. Please welcome our hosts for the 2020 Biennial, co-chairs Sue Straight and Alicia Sadoff and their delegation.
Shalom, y'all. Thank you to our friends in Memphis and the team at the JCC Association for hosting an exceptional biennial. We've got a tough act to follow in the 2 years. It's been a great week, great experience, and a great celebration of our movement and our momentum. What better way to celebrate this biennial and set the stage for 2020 by filling this room with the sounds of Milwaukee. I am Alicia Sadoff, past board chair of the Harry and Rose Samson Family JCC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, proud board member of the JCC Association, and extremely proud co-chair of the 2020 JCC Association Biennial Host Committee. Alongside my fellow co-chair, Sue Straight, our Harley-riding board chair, Jamie Miller, and our delegation here on stage, let me be the first to welcome you on this road trip to Milwaukee. I don't need to tell you how meaningful, relevant, and lasting the biennial experience is. You're all living it and taking it back to the communities we serve. If each of our JCCs are the town squares of the cities we serve, then we serve as mayors, grappling with the hard questions, the great opportunities, and the shared journey for sustaining Jewish life throughout the world. It is an absolute privilege to have Milwaukee be our next stop for the conversation in 2020. Just as a destination for innovation and excellence today. So let's just get it out of the way. We all know what you're thinking, and it's really okay. This is a safe place to say brave things. Milwaukee? Really? Who wants to go to Milwaukee? In fact, I said something not too different than that when we moved my family there 20 plus years ago. I get it, I hear you. But here's what I want you to know that you might not. There's no better place in the world than Milwaukee in the summer. There's no better place to raise a family, build a career, make a difference, celebrate our past, witness our future, and see Jewish life in action than Milwaukee. In many cities, JCCs are community's best kept secret. In many circles, Milwaukee is America's best kept secret. And it is time to spoil the secret and share it with the entire JCC Association movement. Still, we know there are conceptions about our great city. We know you're sitting there thinking it, and we're proud of what we are, where we've come from, and where we're going. Sometimes we even play into those stereotypes. Case in point, we hope you enjoy your fabulous drink coasters. But we'd like to take a few minutes to show you our Milwaukee, the Milwaukee you'll enjoy in just 2 years' time.
All right, who wants to hop on the back of the Harley? Yeah, ready to go? Phyllis, you're on the back. I want to, first of all, give a huge shout out to our marketing department at our JCC who made that entire video. You know, I got a weird one. I got to play two different roles. The first one is I got to wrap up the 2020 biennial announcement. So sorry I took off my shirt. I didn't want to actually redress on stage. So I want you to know that most of you in this room see always being upstaged by my chair of the board. Normally I introduce myself by saying, hi, my name is Mark Shapiro and I am blessed to be the president and CEO of the JCC. Today I am equally blessed by the amazing group who's here with me. Joe Castle, our incoming chair of the board, Sue Straight, Alicia Sadoff, Jamie Miller, Howie Siegel, and Jess Roman, our awesome ELR winners, and Cheryl Rubin, who will be taking a part in helping be part of the host committee. We are so proud to share our Milwaukee with you and for you to come and see the energy and the vibrancy of our city. Like Alicia said and what we shared in this film, we sometimes have an expectation challenge. You had an expectation of what Milwaukee is, and we want to come and show you what it actually is. As I always tell my team, when you're not meeting expectations, you can do two things. You can either try harder, or you can, Peter? Try harder, exactly. If you can't try harder to meet their expectations, then you should work really hard to change them. And I hope today we've done that and changed your expectations, although the beer and cheese really is that good. A community at large thinks about the place in our work and our mission, and how do our prospective donors consider our place in an impact-driven, outcome-based nonprofit? Where do our members see us in the cluttered landscape of our early childhood and camps and fitness and all of those other things? Well, there's one thing for sure. At a JCC, we have to figure it out as we move forward. And now, I'm proud to welcome you to JTalks 2018. My name is Mark Shapiro. Two different speeches, they don't always match up right. So what do you see up on the screen right now? What is it? It's not a trick question and I actually need participation. What is that? It's a clock, right? But we have a small problem. It's not just a clock, is it? What else is it? It's got everything. It is so digital. It has the date. It has become a weather station. It tells us everything we need to know and all the things we never really even needed to know. You know, there used to be a day where it was simple to tell time. And I want you to know that unfortunately, many kids that are in elementary school actually cannot tell time on this. In England, they are right now taking a vote about whether or not they should be eliminating teaching how to read an analog clock because they're not going to need to. None of us need to be able to read these kinds of clocks anymore. And this is the question that I want to ask us today. How do we find a balance between analog and digital in our lives? We have spent a lot of our time here so far talking about living in a digital age. We're going to have three great speakers, two of whom basically live in the digital platform. Yet, at the same time, statistics will show us, without a doubt, our job is personal relationships. We're in the analog business right in the middle of a digital age. And so what do we need to do? We need to find a balance. At our board meetings, Jamie Miller, my Harley-Davidson riding chair of the board, decided he wanted to find out if anybody was really reading the consent agenda. So you know what he did? He started the consent agenda quiz. Go ahead, you can take out a note and write down, I'm going to steal that idea, that's really fun. Because it actually was. He would pick out 2 nuggets from the consent agenda. He'd buy presents, like a thing of matzah farfel, which afterwards, that one never came back again because then people stopped trying to win the quiz. And a couple of weeks ago at one of our board meetings, he gave out to the winner a CD of the new Maroon 5 music. And David Cohn, who is having a birthday today, who I hope is watching, and happy birthday, David, gets this CD, one of our young board members, and says, "What's this?" And he says, "Well, it's a CD." And he says, "Well, my computer has no place to put it." We are in a rapidly moving forward digital age. But when you walk on Beale Street last night and you go into the store, there's as big a section for vinyl as there is for CDs. You know, one of the things we have to realize is everything that's old is new again. And I'm really telling you, we just have to look at fashion. The romper. Everybody remember the romper? Why do you remember it? Because the romper's back again. I am happy to tell you that the man romper is not making it back, which I'm really excited about. Only because I would probably have to give it a try. But I'm happy from all points of view, and so is my family, that the man romper is not making it back. Fanny packs. I mean, which is weird, when you put 80s fanny pack picture into Google, the first image that comes up is The Rock, which I'm sure he's happy I'm using this as an example. And fanny packs are back. I mean, this is from a fashion magazine just a couple of weeks ago. All 3 of these people are wearing fanny packs. Maybe not around their fanny, but they are wearing fanny packs nonetheless. Bell-bottom jeans, they were there, and now we know that they're back in catalogs right now. Fashion is telling us that everything that's old is new again. You just have to wait a little while. You have to watch the clock. and it will come back around, whichever clock it is that you pick. I want to tell you that when I say everything old is new again, this is new, isn't it? Any of you go to Soul Cycle? I'm assuming some people are raising their hands. If you are, your JCC membership was just revoked. What is Soul Cycle? It's a group of people getting together to ride a bicycle, somebody inspiring them. They're having an analog experience. And I want you to know, this is not a new idea. This was my Soul Cycle when I was a kid. A group of kids get together with a banana seat and their bike, and they go ride around for hours and hours and hours, and they make relationships. They make friends. We have to figure out how to find that balance. The digital age is a wave, and it's coming. And digital clocks are not going away. Analog clocks are. But our job is to create relationships with people. We have to find the balance between analog and digital. And we don't have to look much past our own JCC association to figure this out. It is telling us that if you statistically want to improve the chances of your organization getting members to return, they have to feel like they made a friend when they were at the JCC. A shout out to our amazing work with our Mandel Center on our benchmarking study. They do an amazing job of teaching us to be a data-driven organization. They remind us we don't just want to find things that are cool, we want to find things that matter. And who would have ever believed before this that it matters if your people who come to your JCC make a friend? Not that they signed up online. And yes, we have to use these digital tools to improve. We have to be able to sign up for our indoor cycling program online at 1 o'clock in the morning from home, if that's what they want. But what they want is to come in and ride next to their friend. And when they do, and they make a friend, they come back over and over again. At the end of the day, if we find the balance between this analog and digital world we live in, this is the result we get. We get friendships. We build relationships. I have listened to every single person who got an award. I listened to everyone who got up to speak throughout this entire biennial. And what did they say? My Jewish journey began at the JCC. I was the editor of the preschool newspaper, and by the way, we'll take you. By the way, I apologize, assistant editor. It's a good thing you were able to move up the ladder quickly. And so friendships are what we're seeking in this balance. And I want to tell you that we're about to have 3 great speakers come to talk about the idea of pushing the boundary, getting outside of where we are to create these kinds of relationships. And for a minute, I'm going to brag. I want to tell you about a program we did at the JCC. In honor of the 50th anniversary of the Martin Luther King's assassination, more importantly, through the marches that happened and the fair housing marches, which many started in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we connected with the daughters of both Abraham Joshua Heschel and Martin Luther King Jr. and brought them to Milwaukee for a first ever conversation since Bernice King was 4 years old. The last time these 2 women saw each other, the Kings were over at the Heschel's house for Passover Seder. And you think it's stressful at your house before a Seder? Can you imagine if Martin Luther King Jr. was coming over to your house for a Seder? So what we have to do is we have to not just push ourselves out of the boundaries digitally, we have to do it analog. We have to go out and find a way that no one would have ever thought the Jewish Community Center would be bringing the African American and the Jewish community together in a unique way. Take a risk. Do the R&D. Fail, because if you fail, you're on your way. We have built a world where we are measuring every single statistic, and 0.1% drop the wrong way, we have to explain. And the best way we should explain it is that we went analog. Thank you very much. I want to tell you, if you ever wonder if everything old is new again, I want to end by just reminding you, we live our lives on these things, these tablets, right? And if you're ever wondering, I promise you, everything came from an original tablet at some point. Great writings, and we just sometimes have to remember we have to go back to the source. I'm proud to welcome up to the stage for our first J-Talk, Nona Jones, who is the Community Outreach Vice President from Facebook. All yours.
that's official. I was born July 23rd, 1982. My mom grew up in a home that was little on money, but there was a lot of violence. She lived in a 2-room home with 11 brothers and sisters who regularly spent the night watching their father beat their mother within an inch of her life. My father met my mom when he was 21 and she was 15. He immediately fell in love with her and he asked her parents if he could marry her. And given the opportunity to have one less mouth to feed, her parents quickly said yes. What he didn't know is that beneath that very attractive exterior were severe behavioral and mental health issues. My mom was expelled from school in the 3rd grade after pushing a teacher down a flight of stairs. So to say the least, their marriage was rocky. But my father truly loved my mother, so much so that he wanted to start a family. But my mom was not quite as excited. To her, having children was a burden, and she wanted to just have a party for the rest of her life. And for 15 years of marriage, she did get to have a party. But one day, she started to feel nauseous, and she took a pregnancy test, and she learned that she was pregnant. And she cried. She was angry because, again, to her, parenthood meant being burdened with a lifelong responsibility. Now, my father, on the other hand, he was elated. I mean, he waited 15 years, and now he was finally going to become a dad. But 6 months into her pregnancy, life took a very, very unexpected detour. My father started to experience some severe stomach cramps, and so he secretly went to the doctor to have a battery of tests run, and they came back with a diagnosis of terminal stomach cancer. They gave him 6 months to live. In an instant, my father went from the highest high of finally becoming a dad to the lowest low of now having to consider the fact that this little girl that was going to be born soon, he may never hold her. He may never kiss her forehead. He may never walk her down the aisle of her wedding. And even more than that, he was concerned with the reality that because of my mother's mental health issues, the probability that I would be raised in a stable and loving household was pretty low. And so before he even told my mom his diagnosis, he reached out to her sister and said, "Should anything happen to me, please protect Nona." On May 2nd, 1984, 2 years after my father was given 6 months to live and just 2 months shy of my 2nd birthday, he passed away. Shortly after the funeral, my mom decided to take us away from both of their families and follow a guy she barely knew to Florida. That relationship ended shortly after we moved. And after a 2-year stint and string of boyfriends, she met a guy who finally became her live-in boyfriend. And that's when the abuse began. I was young, but I still remember the arguments and the fights like it was yesterday. To the outside world, I was just a regular kid. Neither my teachers nor my student friends had any idea what was happening to me at home. But the arguments got more and more intense, and somehow I always ended up being to blame. So eventually I became the subject of physical, verbal, and emotional abuse. And when I was 5 years old, my mom's boyfriend started to corner me when she was away at work at night. And at first, I told her what he did, but she dismissed it. And as a matter of fact, she blamed me and said that I was the reason. So for the next 6 years, I didn't say another word. Became invisible. Fast forward to the 6th grade. One of my classmates invited me to go to church with her. Mind you, I had never heard of church. I didn't know what church was. But when I asked my mom if I could go, the idea that I could be away from the house and give her some alone time with her boyfriend made her say, absolutely. I didn't know what to expect when I walked up to this building. But I remember when I walked in the doors that I was warmly greeted by kids I didn't know, families I didn't know, people that immediately loved and accepted me just because I was a human being. I had never experienced anything like that in my life. There I was in a community of strangers, strangers who wouldn't be strangers for long, who accepted me just because I was there. You know, up until that point, I really thought I was invisible. I didn't think that I belonged on this earth. I was 11 years old, and I had already attempted suicide twice because I didn't think I belonged. But there I was with a community of people who were knit together through their mutual love for God and love for each other, and that community of people convinced me that I did belong. They had no idea what was happening to me at home, but that didn't even matter. The fact that I was there let them know that I was worthy. It's because of those people that I'm standing here today. See, I've come to discover in my life that the power of community is strong enough to help us feel that what seems hopeless has hope and what feels pointless has purpose. I believe that if I had the time to sit with every single one of you in this room today, that you could tell me stories about how the power of community helped to shape your life. Whether that was your family, maybe it was teachers, maybe it was the JCC. I know that community, our village, operates as the guardrails along our journey through this life, helping us understand that we do belong on this earth. So when I stand here today on behalf of Facebook, I stand here as someone who feels so privileged to do the work that I get to do every single day for our 2 billion users. Because what I get to do and what my colleagues get to do for them is what the Mandarin Church of God of Prophecy did for me. It's what every JCC represented in this room and what the JCC Association of North America does for your community every single day. You help people find and connect with places where they belong. You know, last February when we crossed that 2 billion user threshold, Mark had a moment of introspection. And I shared this in my workshop earlier. Imagine him, a 19-year-old kid at Harvard in a dorm that creates this platform to connect dorm mates to one another. He never imagined that a quarter of the Earth's population would be on his platform. But because we have such an immense privilege and such an immense opportunity, he recognized that we needed to expand our vision for what our company is capable of. For 10 years of our existence, the mission of Facebook was make the world more open and connected. But the question that always remained was, open and connected for what purpose? Well, last June, he changed the mission of our organization to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. When I think about what the power of community means, and when I think about the capacity of Facebook, I automatically think about what you're doing right within the JCC family. There are 2 examples of centers that are using Facebook groups to build community locally that are having powerful results. I think about the Houston Jewish kids and families that's part of the Eleanor Rubinstein JCC, a community of more than 1,000 families that are connecting around shared interest in their children, learning more about one another and the offerings of that JCC community. And then I also think about the JCC Maccabi delegation heads, a group of almost 100 people who come together to share best practices, ask questions, and align themselves around shared values. Facebook groups are helping to accelerate the vision of the JCC, and it's happening today. This is nothing new. This is something that you're already doing. We have more than 200 million Facebook groups today. 200 million across all types of topics and interests and goals that people have for themselves. And what I know to be true is that we were created for connection. We were not created to be alone or isolated. And through Facebook groups, what we're trying to do is help the JCC movement extend your reach even beyond the building into the broader community. When I think about community, the JCC movement rises to the top of my list for what it means in real life. I have a personal connection to JCC. And I was so glad to see the Jewish Alliance of Jacksonville here, because when I was in high school, I played tennis. And tennis was actually my major outlet from what was happening in my home. A friend of mine invited me to play tennis with her one day, and it happened to be at the Jewish Alliance Center on those clay courts. And I remember that those were some of the happiest moments in my life, being at that center with people who didn't know me, but people who actually saw that I had value just because I was in the building. So what does this mean today? I'm so excited to share that we have formally partnered with the JCC Association of North America to launch 13 Facebook groups in JCCs around the country. And what I would ask is, if you represent one of the JCCs on this screen, would you please stand? We just want to take a moment to thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your partnership. What these groups are intended to do is take the beauty and the brilliance and the vibrance of what happens in your building and translate it into a digital space where you can go from people spending 1 or 2 hours together in a building to spending up to 168 hours a week, if they like, in a digital space. We're so excited about the capacity to add value to your members' experience, because as has already been said, JCCs are not just a center. You are the center of community for all walks of life. And we are so privileged and we are so honored to walk alongside you in this journey as we build safe and supportive communities together. Thank you so much.
Wow. Think about this. Nona just taught us. She just took us to church. I wanted to give out an amen when I heard it. When I walked into church for the first time, I walked into a community of strangers who wouldn't be strangers for long. Isn't that our JCCs? We don't always know what's going on. At that church, they didn't know what was going on in Nona's life. She wasn't telling anybody. She was invisible. But they did it to everyone. And so whether they needed it or not, they captured Nona. She would grow to be accepted there, loved for who she was, and she found a place where she belonged. If you took out the word church and put in JCCs, that's our aspiration. It wasn't found online. You went in there, and people hugged you, and they embraced you and brought you in. The power to build community and bring the world closer together. You got snookered. He took your mission statement, Daron. I mean, that's like, isn't that what we do? Isn't it amazing when we see it out there? How awesome is it about Facebook is that they give the power. Think about it. The power. I want to give the power to build community and bring the world closer together. And so I think the thing for us to take back from what we heard from Nona is we are not the solution to the problem in the room. We have to give that power out to our members. It's what community center do they want, not what have we already decided because we were at the Biennial. So that's what I heard from you, Nona, is that we get that chance to go back home and know that every person who walks in the door just might need that place to be loved and belong and feel a part of. And more importantly is that the power to build community is in the community, not just in the leadership. So that is absolutely awesome. Thank you for sharing those words with us. I want to welcome to the stage my very good friend and the CEO of the JCC of Krakow, my Army team buddy from Army Team 1.0, Jonathan Ornstein.
Dzień dobry. That's Polish for Shalom y'all. So I live in Krakow, a city that loves JCC Association of North America so much that we named ourselves after your CEO. So, thank you, Daron. If you look in the guidebooks in Krakow, it says that there are 120 Jews. In our JCC, which just celebrated its 10th birthday last week, we have 700 Jewish members. You guys should start the clock because I'm going to go on forever if you don't put the timer down. And I want to tell you the story of one of those members. Not too long ago, a young woman named Maria walked into the JCC looking very nervous. She asked to speak to a rabbi. My father would have been very happy if I was that rabbi, but unfortunately I wasn't a rabbi. I was only the director. They brought her over to my office. She sits down, very nervous, and I ask her, "How can I help you, Maria?" She says, "I'm not sure if I should talk to you." I said, "Please, tell me your story." Maria begins to tell me that a few days earlier, her grandmother had called her and said, "Maria, you've got to come over to my house right away, no explanation, come over." Maria, good granddaughter, goes over to her grandmother's house. Grandmother sits her down, says, "Maria, I've got to tell you something I've never told anybody before. I'm Jewish, you're Jewish." She begins to tell her a story that she was a little girl in the ghetto. One night, her parents brought her over to the edge of the ghetto with no warning, handed her over to a stranger. That stranger brought her over to a couple who raised her as their own daughter. And the last thing her mother said to her before both her parents were murdered was, "Never tell anyone you're Jewish." And Maria's grandmother kept that promise for 75 years. Married, children, grandchildren, career, and until she told her grandmother, she'd never mentioned to anyone that she was Jewish. And Maria is telling me this story, and I'm sitting there, and this is what we do, this is what we're doing, this is my job, but I'm sitting there probably like you're sitting there, like, oh my God, what a story, what do I say? And she looks at me expectantly after, and I said, "Maria, you've come to the right place. There are so many others like you here." She smiled a little bit. Evidently, that was the right thing to say. She says, "What do I do?" I said, "Come for Shabbat dinner, meet some other people with stories." Luckily, they don't not all the stories are that dramatic. I don't think I would be good for my heart. And she came for Shabbat dinner, started to meet other friends with similar backgrounds, finding out they're Jewish. And she'd also been to Israel and is on birthright, and it's somebody who was lost to the Jewish world, we've helped bring back. And this is what we're doing in Krakow. This is what's happening. But how do we get to this point in 2018 of these young people finding out they're Jewish? We have to do a little bit of a history lesson to figure out where these Marias who are just finding out that they're Jewish, how they got involved. So Poland, I should tell you, spoiler alert, was a very Jewish place for a very long time. 1,000 years of Jewish history in Poland. By 1939, the country was 10% Jewish. The United States today, by the way, about 1.5%. 3.5 million Jews living in Poland in 1939. 60% of the lawyers, 40% of the doctors. Big cities were massively Jewish. Warsaw was a third Jewish. Krakow was a quarter Jewish, right? It wasn't only Fiddler on the Roof in the shtetl. The cities were very, very Jewish. Poland is invaded from both sides by Germany and Russia, and by the end of World War II, the end of the Holocaust, over 90% of Polish Jewry had been murdered, over 3 million Polish Jews. And for most of us, that's the end of the story. We understand there were survivors. They came to our communities. They came to Memphis, to Chicago, to New York, to Israel, wherever they could go. And for us, that's the end of Jewish life in Poland. But not quite. Not all the survivors left. Survivors stayed in Poland. And during communism, it became very difficult to be Jewish for these Polish Jews who lived there for 50 generations and survived the Holocaust. They had to go underground. And during communism, they went underground, they changed their names, and very often, like in Maria's case, they didn't even tell their own families that they were Jewish. And this, by the end of communism, this was seen as the end of Jewish life in Poland. 1989, communism ends in Poland. The country wakes up from a bad dream. If you think about it, World War II was really 6 years, but in some sense, it was 50 years that the country wasn't free. And Poland wakes up in 1989, and non-Jewish Poles take a look at the country. And one of the main differences between 1939, the last time it was free, and 1989, is that there are no Jews around. And majority-minority relations in Poland or anywhere else are a dialogue. And this dialogue had been going on in Poland for almost 1,000 years. Good times and bad times. We think of Poland always in the context unfortunately, of anti-Semitism, but it's worth understanding that the Holocaust happened in Poland because that's where the Jews were. And the Jews were in Poland because they were welcome in Poland when they were kicked out of other countries in Europe. So in 1989, the country wakes up. They're very interested in all these things that have to do with and everything Jewish, because Poles want to understand who they are in a free, democratic Poland, and they can't continue this almost 1,000-year dialogue because the Jews have either been murdered or kicked out or driven underground. So non-Jews become very interested in everything Jewish. They start to write books, and they start to listen to Jewish music, and they start to, they open museums. They start the Jewish culture festivals, like the Jewish Culture Festival in Krakow, Poland, which, by the way, is the largest Jewish culture festival in the world. So as a New Yorker, I have to stop and say, it's a little odd to me that the largest Jewish culture festival in the world is not either in Brooklyn or on the Upper West Side. But the largest Jewish culture festival in the world is in Krakow, Poland, started by two non-Jews 30 years ago, one of whom is still running it. So there's something very interesting going on. There's this non-Jewish interest in all things Jewish. Steven Spielberg comes to Krakow, he films Schindler's List. It kickstarts the revitalization of the Jewish Quarter. By the way, the Jewish Quarter in Krakow, the best preserved Jewish quarter anywhere. There starts to be a tremendous amount, all of this non-Jewish interest in everything Jewish. The New York Times writes an article, Jewish Renaissance in Poland. Sort of. For me personally, it's amazing, and the backdrop to all the good stuff going on and people like Maria finding out they're Jewish is this non-Jewish aspect of the Jewish revival. But for me personally, I want to have my Jewish revival, I'd like it to have a Jewish element. Well, that's where we come in. We mentioned celebrating our 10th birthday. We were founded and conceived of and founded and opened by Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, which, considering the only JCC I've ever been the director of is JCC Krakow, so to me that's the sum experience. So I'm a little surprised as I came to the Biennial to find out that all of your JCCs weren't opened by Prince Charles. I thought that's the way it worked with JCCs, but evidently not. Okay, so our JCC opened in 2008 by Prince Charles. That's a whole separate story that I don't have time to get into. What's going on in our JCC? We just opened Hillel. It's the youngest Hillel in the world. We opened a preschool, the first Jewish school to open in Krakow in 70 years. That's run in our JCC, BBYO in our JCC. We're taking care of 60 Holocaust survivors in our JCC. We have Shabbat dinners every week in our JCC. We have a rabbi. We have a genealogist. We publish a newspaper. We have 55 non-Jewish volunteers. When you come into our building, it's a non-Jewish volunteer, again, building on all this non-Jewish interest, a non-Jewish volunteer who greets you in the reception, who helps out with the Shabbat dinners, and young people are finding out, and that are finding out they're Jewish, have a warm, welcoming place to go. 10 years ago we started out, I was the only employee. We have 47 staff now to go along with the 55 non-Jewish volunteers. And our center is many of you have been there, who come to visit. We had 125,000 visitors in 2017 who came through our JCC, which is quite remarkable. Our whole building is 10,000 square feet, which is a little bit smaller than every single JCC gym I've ever been to in my life, visiting all of you guys. But we managed to make do with our humble little building, and on top of that, we raise our entire budget. 95% of our budget comes from overseas donations. We have a Friends of organization, 95%. So for those of you JCC people and development people and execs and the board, lay leaders who are thinking, oh, I have to go and go have coffee with this one and that one. Well, I have to go do that, except on another continent all the time as we're keeping our JCC open. So it's a very interesting model that's going on. Why does this matter? What I didn't mention, which is the location of Krakow. For those of you who don't know, we're an hour's drive from Auschwitz, right? 50 miles from Auschwitz. So this, I think, is very relevant here. But there are lost Jews like Maria, and this is relevant for all of us because we're all in the same business. There are lost Jews, whether it's because of the Holocaust and communism that drove that killed the Jewish community in Krakow, almost all the community, and drove it underground, or it's because Jews are disengaged and young people aren't excited about being Jewish. We're all in the essential business of reaching out to these lost Jews and bringing them back. And that matters anywhere, wherever that's happening in the world. But in my situation, it's happening down the road from Auschwitz. It's happening in the epicenter, next to the epicenter of the Holocaust. And what does it say about us as a people? That Jewish life can thrive not only in Memphis or in Milwaukee with the motorcycles, and in Florida and in Israel. Jewish life can thrive in Krakow, down the road from Auschwitz. I think it speaks volumes about who we are as a people. And I think our community, along with your communities, shares the very important Jewish idea, which is optimism. If you think about what our community's gone through, it's as bad as it gets. Nothing could be worse than what our community's gone through, yet it's optimistic and hopeful, because to be Jewish means always to be optimistic. If we think about our history, if you looked at it on paper and you said, our history, expulsion, pogrom, Inquisition, crusades, anti-Semitism, Holocaust, none of us would want to be Jewish. How does it make any sense? It's because there's a built-in optimism to being Jewish. And what we've focused on in Krakow, and what I think all of us focus on here, is making our JCCs places of hope, places of optimism, and understanding that this hope and optimism is really what defines us as Jews. And the third aspect where I think this is sort of relevant for us here in this crowd is our interconnectedness. I mentioned 125,000 visitors, and I'm going to take off my JCC Krakow director hat and put on my Jewish kid from New York City hat for a second. We need to understand, we, North American Jews, need to understand that there's more to the Jewish world than Israel and North America. There is, yeah, go ahead. Thank you. There's so much to learn, and I won't say not from our community only, but from all these amazing communities around Europe and South America, all around the world. There's a huge amount for us to learn. There's an excitement, there's an engagement, there's an optimism. There's the young people who are finding out and so excited about being Jewish. There's a contagious energy in the unlikeliest places for us as North American Jews, and it behooves us as a Jewish community to go out and to get out of this bubble that we're in and to go find these communities in these unlikely places. And I encourage all of you to connect, to learn about what JCC Global is doing. I'm here as a JCC Global delegate, which is doing phenomenal work, and for us to be able to connect as a Jewish community and to really, we talk all the time about the interconnectedness, and I think we often just talk about Israel and the US, but let's understand that there's amazing opportunities, amazing stories and best practices, and for us to find out and to connect to what's going on in the rest of the world. And I encourage you to come visit us. I encourage you to go and explore other Jewish communities around the world. And like many people say when they come visit us in Krakow, you come saying Kaddish and you leave saying Shehechianu. Thank you.
So who wants to ride the Harley to Krakow instead? I've been there many times before, but then had the pleasure of being part of the First Army team group from JCC Global, and after convincing the people from Krakow that Milwaukee wasn't all ice and snow all the time, they agreed to partner with us. So had the blessing of being a part of this amazing program. And we just learned a bunch of lessons again. We have to get out of our comfort zone. I think any of us who run a JCC, we got to stop complaining about our building problems or our hurdles. This man just built an entire Jewish community, as he will often say, not because of the Holocaust, but in spite of it. He is building a community an hour outside of Auschwitz that is young and vibrant, and a Jewish community that I think all of us only wish that we could have. I love to hear Jonathan remind us, we're just all in the same business. We are all in the same business. It might not be fitness, it might not be spinning, it might not be early childhood, although congratulations on your 14 little kids, we love that. It is that we are in the Jewish peoplehood business, and we really are. And can you only imagine what it would be like to build a Jewish community center that close to Auschwitz? It's something that each of us have to remember, that it takes going far outside of our comfort zone to make it happen. I remind you that everything old is new again. In the 1800s, up until the Second World War, Poland was the home of Jewish life. It went away, and it's coming back. And it just so happens that today is actually the day commemorating the end of the Second World War. Today is May 8th, and I think for a moment, if we really just think about that synergy, about us all being together, thanking all the people who serve in our JWB, and thinking about the fact that even though we are thinking backwards in that time, everything old is new again, and I'm proud to be working with Jonathan and people like that who are making Krakow great Jewish communities right now, and not waiting for someone else to do it. I think our last lesson is this. It appears that Prince Charles likes Krakow. So Daron, I believe that is an opening, and I've heard that Prince Charles has unlimited resources. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to welcome up Archie Gottesman, a new board member of JCC Association and founder of Jubelong.
Hi, I am so glad to be here, and I have a joke for you. So, God says to Moses, Moses, never cook a calf in its mother's milk. And Moses said, oh, God, so what you're saying is that we should never eat milk and meat together. And God's like, no, what I said is never cook a calf in its mother's milk. And Moses is like, oh, Lord, forgive my ignorance. What you're saying is that we should wait 6 hours after eating meat to drink milk so that the two are not in our stomachs at the same time. And God's like, no, what I'm saying is never cook a calf in its mother's milk. And Moses is like, oh, Lord, please don't strike me down for my stupidity. What you really mean is that we should have a separate set of dishes for milk and a separate set for meat. And if we make a mistake, we have to go bury that dish outside. And God's like, do whatever you want. So I love that joke because it is such a good example of how sometimes Judaism seems harder than it has to be. Okay, so it was 1986. I was just out of college, and I was dating this sexy, smart, sweet Naval Academy graduate named Gary, and there we are. And he is pretty much the perfect guy, but he's United Methodist. So one day, not too long after we were dating, we were driving from Boston to Maine in his Toyota, and we started talking about our future. And I said, Gary, I love you, but I'm going to marry somebody who's Jewish. It was very important to me. And this wasn't a huge surprise because Gary, he just knew it. He knew that being Jewish was important. So he says, well, how about if I become Jewish? And I was like, oh, that's so nice. I'd be amazing. And so then we're driving, and like 5 miles later, I turn to him and I'm like, Gar? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, I love that you're willing to convert. That is just so amazing. But it's bigger than that. What if like we get married and we have kids and then I die young? That means you're going to have to marry somebody else who's Jewish, or you're going to have to meet somebody who's not Jewish, and then she's going to have to convert. And he's like, okay, you know what? Like, you think what he would have done is said, okay, crazy lady, I'm just going to go fall in love with someone who's a little bit less complicated. But instead he said, Archie, I will be Jewish. Our children will be Jewish. If you die young and I remarry, of course I will continue to raise our children as Jews, because that is what they will be. And the man never wavered, even when my father, who of course I told about this, started sending Gary boxes of books about the Holocaust, because obviously because my own sales pitch wasn't quite good enough. And what's interesting today at lunch, I must say that I had such gratitude when you all were honoring the military chaplains, because not too long after the conversation I told you about, Gary started working. He was in the Navy, as I told you. He was an officer in the Navy, and he started working with a Jewish chaplain who helped him with his conversion. And to just add another dot on that story, our oldest daughter graduated from Columbia and is now in the Israeli army. She actually left school and did that. So a little bit of military there. But But knowing that Gary was converting left me with a sense of responsibility. I began to see more clearly what Judaism looks like to a rookie, whether they are newly Jewish like Gary or just like inexperienced in their practice. And I became really frustrated about how often the opportunity for like warmth and welcoming and connection is lost because of the rules, kind of like the God and Moses joke. So here is an overly simplified version of Jews in America. Okay, the blue are the most observant, and these are the folks whose Judaism is part of their everyday lives. You guys know this. Their kids probably go to day school. They'll likely marry somebody else who's Jewish, and they give most of their money to Jewish causes. The white is the group of connected Jews, not as observant. So like I sort of feel like I belong in this group. We probably celebrate the big four, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, and Passover. Like our kids probably go to Hebrew school. When it comes to charitable giving, we likely give some of our money to Jewish causes. And we probably will marry Jews, but the people in the white group, it's not like a deal breaker, okay? That's how those belong. But now the red, okay. Those, do you see how big, like that is our most huge group of people, and that's the DJs. Okay, the DJs are the disengaged Jews, and they are the biggest group of Jews, and they are doing very little, if any, Jewish yet. And sometimes with Judaism, it is so easy to feel like you don't belong, which means you really want to stay safely put in that outside red circle. And this happens for so many reasons, and it's nobody's fault. But it's reasons like being raised in a secular home, or not believing in God, or not liking Hebrew school, or thinking that the cost for high holiday tickets or synagogue membership is too high, or JCC membership is too high. Who knows what the problems are? There's a lot of problems. Or maybe people think that they love someone who's not Jewish, and they can't think of how to get that person to, become Jewish too, or add some joy to their lives. See, the thing is, JCCs, it's amazing. We have members from all three of these circles at the JCCs. But you guys, and a lot of other organizations do too, they have a lot of the blue and a lot of the white, but you guys are the only Jewish organizations that have thousands and thousands of the DJs streaming in and out of your doors every day. You guys have them. And those DJs, they are like the holy grail for practically every other Jewish group. And they are like in your swimming pools. So this means that the JCCs have a unique opportunity to add some joyous Judaism to their lives. So a wise rabbi once told me, he said, like, Archie, he's like, Judaism is a fantastic product, but the marketing sucks. And as a branding professional, I agreed. And I decided I was going to do my best to rebrand Judaism, especially for the DJs. Not by reinventing the wheel, because Judaism already has everything that it needs, but by shifting what it means to be Jewish and focus why it matters, and lowering the bar for people who are considering a Jewish practice but just need help getting started is the best way to create that shift and energize our community. So JewBelong is the heart of the rebrand. It's a website, and it's full of fun, free, easy-to-use Jewish rituals and information. So anyone can go on and print parts that they want to use. For example, here, I just brought some. So, like, here's our Haggadah, and we pay, the way things look is very important. We pay a lot of attention to, like, the colors and the font, and does it look cool? And we have a Yom Kippur cheat sheet, and a fabulous Shabbat book. And more important, well, I think it's really important how it looks, because I think that's just all part of branding, is what things look like. But it's also fun and free and easy to use. There's very, very little Hebrew. There's a lot of jokes and it is not just funny and it's superficial. There's a lot of meaning. So I've been branding for many years, and experienced firsthand the lasting impact that edgy, honest, memorable advertising can have. So for years, before this whole Jewish thing, I did the branding for my family's business. And the business is Manhattan Mini Storage and Edison Park Fast. And we did ads like these. If you don't like gay marriage, don't get gay married. Why leave a city that has 6 professional sports teams and also the Mets? New York City, tolerant of your beliefs, judgmental of your shoes. Does my butt make this room look small? Your closet space is shrinking as fast as her right to choose. Yeah, that got a lot of publicity. That was on CNN, it was like huge. Your closet's tinier than a runway model's lunch. This lack of gun control is killing us. That was from probably 15 years ago. Oh, and stop praying, God's too busy to find you a parking spot. So it was our branding became an iconic voice in New York City. We received way more publicity and recognition than we ever either paid for or could have imagined, because we were fearless and we were funny. And also our product was very good. For good branding to really work, you need to have a solid product backing it up. But you can't get more solid than Jewish wisdom and values. But the thing is, we can't just say, oh my God, Judaism, it's the best. We're about family and community and repairing the world. Oh, and don't worry that you don't know Hebrew or that your mom's not Jewish or you didn't have a bat mitzvah. Those things actually might be true, but telling people to worry is not nearly enough. Lots of us, especially DJs, do worry. They worry that they are doing Jewish wrong, or it's too complicated to bother starting, or that their not Jewish partner won't feel any connection. And it's not surprising that so many DJs decide it's better to not do any Jewish at all than to keep worrying about it. So here's where Jubelong and the JCCs play such an important role. We can take action and give the DJs the tools so they can stop worrying and start doing. Everyone, including DJs, craves meaning. We heard about this. And they crave meaning and connection. And if we don't help them, they're going to find it at SoulCycle or on their yoga mat. So how do we get these meaning cravers engaged? One way is to make sure that they know that they are wanted, like really, really wanted. Let's start with the DJs who use their not Jewish partner as an excuse for staying out in the red circle, okay? So, Ruth, as in the book of, as in the great-grandmother of King David, was widely considered to be the first person to convert to Judaism. The blessing in her name that Jubelong wrote honors the growing diversity of today's Jewish couples. The ritual starts with a bowl of Ruth's mix, which we just made this up, like Jubelong made this up, but it's like a thing now. It's a combination of almonds and raisins and chocolate chips. And the idea is that each of these ingredients is good on its own, but mixed together, they're even better. So the way the ritual works is you can do this at Shabbat or Passover. It was very popular. Everyone takes a little bit of Ruth's mix and then reads the blessing out loud together, which I'd love to do with all of you right now if you would read with me. So please read. May everyone who shares in a Jewish life feel welcome and integrated. We are deeply grateful to those who provide love and support to their Jewish partners and families by creating a home that includes Judaism. We offer special thanks to those who are raising their sons and daughters with Jewish identity. We are a very small people, and history has made us smaller. Our children mean hope, life, and future. We pray with all of our hearts that the gifts and blessings you have given to your family, to the community, and to the Jewish people will come back to you and fill your life with joy and fulfillment. Thank you for doing that. Another important way to connect with DJs is to help them overcome their fear of Jew-embarrassment. Okay, Jew-embarrassment. We made the word up. but you can guess the meaning. It's when you come across something Jewish that you don't understand, but you think that you should, and you automatically feel foolish or like you're a bad Jew. So like, okay, my Aunt Joan has about 25 of us over for Thanksgiving every year. And Joan, the way it works is Joan cooks the turkey, and the rest of us get assignments to bring either dessert or a side dish. And this particular year, my cousin Jenny, the one I'm telling, this year that just, I've got to tell you this story, Jenny brings salad. That was what her assignment was. And Jenny, Jewish lawyer from Springfield, Massachusetts. So before the meal, Joan's in the kitchen and things are going on there, and I was in the living room, and Jenny and I were talking and having hors d'oeuvres, a glass of wine, and we hear Joan yell from the kitchen, "Jenny, can you come in here, please?" And just, you know the way she said it, like something was wrong. So Jenny goes running into the kitchen, and me, being me, was like, I went kind of to peek around to see what was going on, and I see Joan, and she's carrying the bowl, the salad bowl, like this. Like she's walking, and she's away from her, she's putting it almost on the porch, like way away. And my first thought is like, God, did a dead mouse get into the salad? Like, what could happen? So I go back in the living room, because I don't want to be near any of that stuff. So I go back in the living room, and Jenny comes in a couple minutes later, and she's like this. And I was like, what happened? And she's like, feta cheese. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And all of a sudden, the whole living room is like, feta, turkey, Jenny, kosher. And basically, Jenny had put feta cheese in her salad. And Jenny's like, I offered to pick it out, but you know how feta starts to crumble when you break it up? Yeah, I did. I knew how that feta had crumbled all over Jenny's terribly unkosher for Thanksgiving salad. Jenny was Jew-barrassed. Then there's the high holidays. They are a breeding ground for Jew-barrassment since A, so many people only go to synagogue on the high holidays, and B, they are chock full of tripping hazards that can cause Jew-barrassment. So Jew-barrassment can be done from person to person, like, oh, you're leaving, well, we'll go to the door. Oh, you're leaving services already? Or, I can't believe you're not fasting. Or, I can also Jew-barrass myself. Like, why does everyone know the words to this song except me? What is Mariv? Did I just walk into services at the worst time? What is all this bending at the knee? Should I be doing that? Why are people hitting themselves? Am I hitting myself hard enough? Can everyone tell that I haven't been to services since last year? Can this woman next to me tell that I don't believe in God? What about the rabbi? She seems very perceptive. Who do I say yortzeit for? What is yortzeit? Here comes the Torah. Do I kiss it with my book or my talit? Shoot, where is my talit? And by the way, is it talit or talis? And for that matter, is it kippah or kippot or yarmulke? And what is the difference between a machzor and a siddur? And if I take Advil for my headache, does that negate my fast? And if so, what happens then? And oh my God, here it is, the holiest day of the year. The final pages of the book are being written, the gates are closing, and I keep getting distracted, wondering whether my Amazon package has been delivered yet and what emails I missed in the last hour and a half. So, thank you. We can all work to decrease Jew-barrassment, and we don't change the rules. We just need to communicate. Like Jetty, remember we keep a kosher home, no cheese on the salad. Or when someone does make a mistake, respond with warmth and understanding. Once I was giving a talk similar to this at a Manhattan JCC, okay? Oh, it was so Jew-barrassing. There were these two guys who were sitting in a table, just like you guys are, really close. And I'm here talking about Jewish stuff, right? But because they were wearing kippot, and they started talking to each other a little bit while I was talking. And I start getting super Jew-barrassed wondering what I could possibly be saying wrong that they're, whispering to each other. So talk is over, and one of the guys comes over to me. And he was actually very nice. He's like, hey, I liked what you said. I'm sorry that my friend and I were talking a little bit during your talk, but we go to Yeshiva University, and this Judaism thing happens to us all the time. I was like, what? You have Judaism at YU? You guys are like the ground zero for Judaism of everybody else. Dude, how is that a thing? So Judaism is a great word, and sometimes the stories can make us laugh, especially when we are surrounded by people who we feel safe with. But the fact is, Judaism is so dangerous. It becomes, I'm not good enough, and I do not belong here so quickly. So here is how Jubelong is rebranding Judaism. Even if the closest you get to synagogue is walking by one on the way to Soul Cycle. Are you Jewish is not a trick question. Even if his mother still calls you her. Joan Rivers is gone, we have a vacancy. When you surprise your Jewish fiance's parents with tickets to Hamilton on Yom Kippur, #Judaism. Jewsostion. That feeling when you just got through the high holidays and now you gotta hang fruit. Next time, don't ask me to do the 4 questions. At least you can wear your skinny jeans on Thursday. This is, this ran on a year when Yom Kippur was on a Wednesday, and can I really be the only one who sits in services starving, thinking, well, at least tomorrow I'll weigh a little bit less than I did today? All right, whatever, maybe me, but I thought it was hysterical. Rosh Hashanah is not a Jewish drag queen, but how fabulous would that be? I often hear directly from people who want to add a little Judaism to their lives, but they don't know where to start. So the answer is to find a blessing or two that you love and read it on a regular basis. That is really all it takes to start a Jewish family tradition. So you guys have been doing the old challah in a plastic bag trick for years, so you're already halfway there. That's my personal reaction. I feel like every time my kids used to leave a JCC, they'd have challah in a plastic bag, on a Friday, of course. But we all know that a lot of that challah is eaten in the car on the way home. So the traditional Shabbat blessings, right? We're not the only ones who did that? Okay. The traditional Shabbat blessing, and while meaningful for some of us, and it really is, it's very traditional, but it doesn't cut it for a lot of DJs. But Jubelong's children's blessing just might. Okay, so we're going to do it together, but before we do, I want you to think for a minute about the kids in your life. Whether they're your own children, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, just whatever young people bring you joy. And since the world is such an unfair place, and there are so many children who don't have anyone to love them, let's hold them in our hearts too as we read together out loud. Please read with me. Here with you beside me, I feel so greatly blessed. This moment means much more than I can say. A time to be together, a time for us to rest. Shabbat is here, the time has come to celebrate the day. So I hold you close, my hands upon your head. As I watch you grow, I smile through my tears. Sometimes I wish you'd stay forever small, but then I see you blossom and I befriend the passing years. I love you now, I'll love you then, I love to see it all. So I lift my voice to offer you this prayer. For every step along the road, I will be there. That's it. I just love that blessing. And you can find it at Jubelong on the Shabbat, in the Shabbat booklet on page 5. And who knows, maybe some of you want to print it out and throw it in the baggie and just see what happens. I love finding wonderful Jewish content, and I've gotten pretty good at it, but every once in a while, I can't find what I need. For example, a blessing for the connected communities of JCC Association and the JCCs of North America, who dedicate resources, time, and heart to the future of the Jewish people. So, I wrote a blessing for you myself. God, or universal spirit, or whatever you believe, please bless the men and women who care about the JCCs and help them thrive. They know that their JCC might be the only place that a disengaged Jew will find a community that can literally change their life. These people really believe and live the fact that the middle C in JCC stands for community, and that community has the power to bring joy, love, and future to the Jewish people. God, while we're at it, it would be great if all the members paid their dues on time. The plumbing of every JCC works perfectly. And during pickup time, the parking lot looked like a well-oiled machine. May these folks, who are the hearts of the JCCs everywhere, be blessed with the true knowledge and deep understanding of how many lives they touch every day. And may they be blessed with the love of our community for which they are a backbone. Thank you very much.
There we go. See, now someone smart wouldn't come up after her. And I've answered my own question. Thank you, Archie. I clearly realize that synagogue should be off my list. It's too stressful, and we should eliminate kashrut for the future. But in all seriousness, thank you for taking the chance to tell the jokes, to add humor into what happens, to actually make us challenge. If we think it's important, then we should, and if it isn't, then maybe we shouldn't. By the way, I'm not actually suggesting you nix kashrut. I don't want that to be what's out there. But the chance to have the conversation about then being sure, why do you? And that's what I heard you talking about today. The opportunity for us to realize that what does Judaism look like for a rookie? How many of you heard that when she said it? Archie said, what does Judaism look like for a rookie? I think we probably all thought we were talking about non-Jews. I think there are a lot of rookies who are Jews when they get Jew-barrassment. And who knew you'd come to a biennial and get a whole new language? DJs, Jew-barrassment, Trumpertunity. We got a whole new dialogue moving forward. Back to the point about the fact that everything old is new again. I thought it was called Gorp. Now you've named it Ruth's Mix. Everything old is new again. You give it a new name, and now it's gone from camp to Jubilong. We'll let you keep Ruth's Mix, but for the camp people and us, it's just Gorp, so that's the way it's going to be. What's really important was the line that she said, every one of us craves meaning in our lives. Every one of us craves meaning in our lives. If you're in this room because in some way you crave meaning in your life, and each one of us is blessed because you picked the JCC to be that place to bring meaning to your life. To the lay leaders that are out there, thank you. Thank you for picking us as the place where you went to preschool or took swim lessons. For the leaders who took the time to say, I need a community and I need blessings and I need to feel something to be a part of my life, and you picked us. To all of the professionals out there, what were you thinking? No, thank you for everything that you do. I'm proud to be part of the executive leadership of our agency, to be somebody who craves meaning every minute and is always trying to find it wherever we can, whether it's our camp directors or our early childhood teachers, the people who market or clean our buildings, the people who are a part of our JCCs every day that keep our parking lots running, that are truly our blessing. Thank you for ending with a blessing. And I think the only way we can end this year's JTalks is if together we say, Amen.